The wagon dropped him at the gate with 11 others and did not wait, pulling away seconds after the last man dropped to the ground. Reichenfeld was not what the conscription notice had called it. The notice said processing facility. What Alaric saw was a field that had been persuaded, mostly through fencing and some optimistic signage, to believe it was a military installation. The fencing was wood, some of it leaned. Beyond it stood barracks buildings of unpainted timber, weathered to the gray of old teeth, and between them, men moved in the loose, unhurried way of people who had been waiting long enough that waiting had become the job. A corporal met them at the gate. He had a ledger. "Names," he said. Not a question. They gave their names. The corporal wrote them down without looking up, his stylus moving in the abbreviated scratch of a man who'd stopped caring whether the letters were fully formed. When he reached Alaric, he paused. "Von Thorn." "Yes." "House conscript or voluntary?" "Conscript." The corporal looked up then, briefly, with the expression of a man confirming something he'd already decided. "Minor house. Debt obligation." He wrote it down and moved on. They were walked to the quartermaster's tent in a loose group that kept threatening to become a line and never quite managed it. The quartermaster was a heavy-set sergeant who distributed kit with the efficiency of someone who had long since stopped thinking of the objects as objects. Bedroll, mess tin, 2 shirts, 1 pair of boots if your size was in stock, a chit if it wasn't. Alaric's size was not in stock. He took the chit, folded it into his breast pocket, and stepped aside. The boots he'd arrived in would hold for now. He noticed the quartermaster counting items out of the crate without writing anything down, logging the whole day's draw in a single entry at the end of his shift. The notice went into the back of his mind, behind other things. Barracks 7 was the 4th building from the eastern fence. Inside, 20 double bunks, a cold stove at the far end, the smell of men who'd been sleeping in the same air long enough for the smell to stop registering. Most bunks were already claimed by kit, if not by bodies. Alaric took a lower bunk near the middle of the room. Not the door, which got the cold and the traffic. Not the back, where the stove smoke collected, and whoever had claimed proximity to it had decided that gave them the right to gather. Middle was unremarkable. Unremarkable was where he intended to stay. He stowed his kit. The men around him were doing what men did when they'd been dropped somewhere unfamiliar. 2 were talking too loudly about someone they both knew from somewhere that wasn't here. 1 was already on his back with an arm over his eyes. Several were arranging their small belongings with more attention than the belongings warranted. Alaric was 31 years reborn into this word, and now in a body that's been on this world for 22 years. The body was lean, not yet hardened, with the quality of someone who had done physical work, but not soldiering. Most of these men moved like they were hoping not to bump into anything. The corporal came back at the end of the working day, ledger open. "Roll call. Sound off when I read your name." He read 20 names. Alaric's was 14th. He said sound it off at the right moment, clearly, without emphasis. The corporal finished the list and looked at the room. He counted heads with his lips moving slightly, the way a man counts who learned the habit young and never revised it. He counted 38. He looked at his ledger. He looked at the room again. 38. He wrote something in the margin. Then he closed it and said, "Lights out at the second bell. Muster at dawn. Don't be late." He left. After evening meal, lentil soup from a cauldron, served by a cook who had the look of a man who'd stopped tasting anything he made, he walked the camp. Not quickly, not with purpose. The men he passed didn't look at him, and he didn't look at them. That was the agreement. The camp ran in 2 rows of barracks, north to south, with the administrative buildings clustered at the northern end near the main gate. Behind the 3rd barracks, a gap in the fence where 2 boards had been pulled aside. Men came and went through it. Not many, not obviously. The southern end backed onto a drainage ditch below a low earthen berm. At the main gate, 2 sentries on a rotation. The change of watch took 4 minutes. Neither of them watched the gate during it. The quartermaster's tent was closed with a toggle latch. The evening quartermaster was a different man than the morning one, and there was no overlap between their shifts. He came back before the 2nd bell and lay down in the dark. Around him, men breathed and shifted, and 2 were already snoring with the commitment of men who had stopped expecting better. He stared at the ceiling. The count had been wrong. Not the count, the ledger. the count had been what it was. The ledger had decided otherwise. And now, the ledger was what was true. That was how it worked here. Ink on paper was the ground these men stood on, not the ground under their feet. He'd understood that abstractly. Now, he understood it in his hands. Outside, the second bell rang. A man near the door turned over heavily. Someone muttered something that wasn't addressed to anyone. Alaric closed his eyes. He thought about the gap in the fence behind the third building. He thought about the quartermaster who didn't reconcile his shift. Dawn muster was in 8 hours. He had enough to think about until then.